Hi there, welcome to the archives. So I'm again just going to do a quick one. This one is on shame and power. So much of shame is about power. Specifically, I'm talking about shame and how it's tied to abuse of power, negotiating power, and controlling and dominating others. If you want power over somebody, shame is usually, or emotions in general, especially the more difficult ones, right? Fear, but shame is also very productive at dominating others. Shame thrives off of unequal power imbalances and power relations. What does this mean? Again, we've talked about how historically public shaming was used as a form of punishment. And so those who have said to committed a crime, those who had done something wrong, those who had stepped out of community rules and regulations, right? Those who were non-conforming, shame was used to correct them. It is often used to discipline people, right? You think of you do something wrong and the punishment is usually tied to some form of shame. Why? Because shame is all about I am bad or wrong, right? When you do something bad or wrong, which is guilt, I have done something bad or wrong, that often will bring up some sort of shame, which is meant to make you feel bad and wrong. And we hope that in making somebody feel bad and wrong and feeling ashamed of themselves, we are gaining some sort of power over them to influence a change in their behavior. Shame is very much about a change in behavior. It's all about controlling people. It's all about manipulating them, right? And so you have to remember that feeling shame makes us feel powerless. When somebody shames you, you feel very powerless, especially if they do it publicly, right? It's a very forceful nature. It's very painful. And so its forceful nature makes us want to take power and control back. For example, someone shames you, it triggers a sense of inferiority, right? Anger emerges, maybe even rage. You're just livid that how dare this person try to shame me, especially if they do it publicly. All of these emotions, including fear of being seen as weak, maybe you fear losing your reputation, you might fear being seen as shameful in front of others. All of these emotions, the intensity of it makes us feel as though we are not in control, right? We've lost control of the situation, we've lost control of our emotions, we are just not in control. Not many of us like to feel very powerless, right? And so the immediate response is to reassert some sort of superiority. We want to strike back. We want to clap back. We want to lash out, right? In such a state, we reason that dominating that person is the most rational response. People often, there's this binary between logic and emotions, reason and emotions. They're not completely separate, right? Some people will use, in their emotional state, think that they are acting rationally. So a woman rejects a man, and in his logical reason, he is within his rights in a patriarchal society to discipline and punish her, including kill her. To a lot of men, that is a rational decision. How dare you, this woman who is supposed to be below me, humiliate me publicly? Let me slap you, kill you, shoot you, starve you, whatever. To a lot of people, that is rational. That's not an emotional response. It is an emotional response, right? And so we have to think about how all of these things are just messages that we send people. First, if it was a woman, we're seen as emotional, we're irrational, we're not logical. But often, when the other gender, when men do it, that is seen as a rational response because they are told that they are able to act and do however they want without impunity. And so we have to think about this, right? If you are a person with power, or if you already have a lot of power, if you have a lot of wealth, if you have a lot of stature, then you're going to use that in your benefit. How you shame people is going to have more impact than somebody who doesn't have as much power, right? Which is why I always say the one with the power will always win the petty award. The most petty will always be the person who has that power to assert some level of domination. And so we have different names for this dance that happens. Some people will call it retaliation, others call it revenge. Something gets justified because we frame shaming as such an offensive act. And so I just wanted to get on here and talk about shame and power. Where you have shame, you likely have a power imbalance, a power struggle, right? When you're in a tug of war with somebody for power, it's very likely that they're going to use emotions to leverage that power. And we don't often think about emotions that way. We think of it as this feeling thing. We just, oh, I feel and it's womanly. And like, no, it's not benevolent. Emotions are actually very violent if we weaponize it. And so that's all I wanted to get on here and say. Nothing long, just asking you to consider when you are in shame, think about how it makes you feel powerless. And when you do feel powerless, what are some of the coping mechanisms you do to reassert that power? Usually, if you pay attention to yourself, if you pay attention to others, that sense of powerlessness is going to feed into some sort of a power struggle. You're going to want to reassert power back. You're going to want to take that power back. How do you take power back? I'm going to ask you to think about, you might be taking power back by using shame, by shaming people, by humiliating them, by embarrassing them. Because why? Humans have understood that shame is a very powerful emotion at getting people to conform, at getting them to change their behavior, at getting them to succumb to our will. And so that's just all I wanted to do, is to get on here and talk about shame and power, okay? Until next time, in solidarity.